Hi guys, I'm going to show you how you can make thousands of pounds in profit from Sky Bet's Acca Freeze promotion. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what the promotion actually is, what our strategy is, and how our Freezematcher tool supports you along the way. So what actually is the Sky Bet Acca Freeze promotion? Well, Sky Bet have a promotion which lets you place an accumulator bet with 5 legs or more, and within one of those legs, you can freeze the scoreline to automatically win that bet. So even if that team goes on to draw or lose, you'll still win that leg. So typically you rely on all 5 results to come through, but this time one of those legs can be frozen early on, and that gives you a better chance at winning the Acca. Now on its own, it's just a really cool feature that Sky Bet have that the average bettor will enjoy. However, if you're serious about betting and match betting, you can use our strategy to turn this promotion into a massive ARB opportunity. So how it works is typically with match betting, you'll have a team and you're going to place a lay bet against that team so it covers the draw or the loss, and these two bets will simply cancel each other out. But in our example, we can turn it into an ARB because for the freeze selection, you can lay the team to score first instead. And these odds will be much, much lower. So for example, if the team on Sky Bet scores first, you can freeze the selection on Sky Bet and win that bet. However, if they don't score first, you'll win your lay bet on Smarkets. But this is a little bit complicated, so let's dive into the example. Let's take a step back and let's walk you through the actual process. So let's take a step back and just look at it from a bird's eye view. So the overall strategy is simply you're going to pick 4 favourites and 1 underdog. Now the underdog team is the one you're going to focus on freezing, because that's the one you're going to be laying on the team to score first. And this is the leg that's going to turn this Acca into a massive ARB opportunity. So I'm going to walk you through an actual example now so it starts to make a little bit more sense, because I know you're probably very confused at the minute. Now, while you can do this whole process manually, it's very, very difficult to find the best legs to maintain the Acca. Watch the odds, because you're going to need to find the best back odds, the best lay odds, especially for the freeze game, and then track everything to make sure that you're sequentially laying it. So that's why we've created our Freezematcher tool. So this will do everything for you. This automates the whole process. It allows you to track everything, and it finds the most appropriate game. So the first step in the process is to simply find your 5-fold Acca. So you could do this by heading to our tool and selecting one of the freeze legs. Now the reason we present the freeze legs and not the whole Acca is, one, it will be a bit too confusing, but also the freeze leg is the most important leg. Now why is this? This is because the freeze leg you'll need to be free for. So you'll need to check your calendar and see if you're going to be free and able to do this game. So if we chose the Bayern Munich game, you would need to be free on the 2nd of May at 2:30 PM until the game finished. This is because if Heidenheim went 1-0 up, you would need to freeze that game on Sky Bet to win that selection and then progress. But we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later on. Now, we do order our freeze legs in terms of profit. So if you see a freeze leg with a retention above 2, this typically means it's one of the most profitable accas. Now, moving on, we do need to make sure our settings are right before we choose our freeze leg. So you're going to want to make sure the event length is at least sort of 120 minutes. This just makes sure that the games are at least 120 minutes apart. This will give you time to sequentially lay your accas. Now, this might be gibberish to you if you haven't heard of match betting before. However, if you have, it will make sense. But no worries, we'll get onto it later on. Now, you want to make sure your stake is £20 because this is the max stake that Sky Bet will allow. Of course, you can lower it, but you will make less profit. Now, your max odds I put at 50. These are reasonable and relatively low. Now, you'll see if you enter your max odds higher than that, say 100, your liability is going to go up, because remember, we're laying these massive accas, so we are going to need a lot of liability, so a lot of money in our exchange account, so in our Smarkets account. Okay, so now let's get into it. So now let's assume we're choosing the Bayern Munich versus Heidenheim game. So as you can see from this Acca, it's given us 4 favourites, so Leeds, Arsenal, Bournemouth and Inter Milan, and 1 massive underdog being Heidenheim. So that's the game that we're going to freeze. Now, for each of these selections, they're not overlapping. So as you can see, this starts on 1st of May, 2nd of May but at 5:30, 3rd of May at 2 o'clock, and 3rd of May at 7:45. So they're not overlapping, and this is specifically for us, giving us time so we can sequentially lay these legs. So now let's show you exactly what we'll be doing for this Acca. So the first step is simply just to head over to Sky Bet and place this Acca. So you're going to be placing the 5 selections. So Leeds to win, Heidenheim to win, Arsenal to win, Bournemouth to win, and Inter Milan to win. Now, once you've placed that on Sky Bet, the next step is to start laying the selections. Now, if you're new to match betting, the term lay is going to be a little bit confusing, but it's simply when we're placing a bet against that selection. So if we place a lay bet against Leeds, it simply means that we're going to be placing a bet on Burnley or the draw. So it's covering both of those outcomes, and it's essentially cancelling out our initial bet of Leeds to win. But I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. So this first leg is going to show you what we're going to be placing as our lay bet. So you can see the stake here. We want to be placing a stake of £29.58. So I'm going to copy that. I'm then going to head over to Smarkets. We're going to find Leeds versus Burnley. So you're going to head over to this sell button. So this is just a lay button of 1.48. Now, again, if you're new to match betting, all this means is we're essentially backing the draw or Burnley to win. So it's essentially just cancelling out our initial back bet of Leeds to win. We're then going to copy in our stake of £29.58. And again, this is where if you're new to match betting, it will be a little bit confusing. So as you can see, our total payout is £43.78. Now, this is where it's confusing. So what we're risking is not £29.58. So this is where it's different to a back bet. Our risk is this liability here, so £14.20. Now this is what we'll actually need in our account to place this lay. So once you place that lay bet, that's all you need to do until Leeds United have finished their game. Now if Leeds win, your Acca will continue into the Bayern Munich game. However, if Leeds lose, your Acca would have finished there and you would have made your profit. Now we can see here what our profit would have been. So we would have spent overall £34.20. So remember, from our Sky Bet Acca bet, so the £20 we placed on the 5-fold Acca, we had £20 on the Acca. Now on Smarkets, we would have spent that £14.20. Remember what I showed you on your liability. So overall, so far, your accumulated costs are £34.20. Now, what we would have made in Smarkets, because remember, assuming we would have lost the bet here, i.e. we would have made our money in Smarkets, it would have returned £43.77. So overall, if Leeds lost, we would have made £9.58 already. So without even reaching the freeze leg, on the first leg, the Acca lost and we would have made £9.58 already. So hopefully that makes sense so far. So far we would have laid Leeds to win. We would have accumulated £34 in costs. And if Burnley won or Leeds drew, we would have won our money in Smarkets and made £9.58. However, if Leeds won, and that's the likelihood because they are the massive favourite, then so far we would have been at a total of £34 loss. So let's imagine Leeds won now. So we're going to click that they won, and the Acca is going to continue onto the Bayern Munich game. So this is where it gets a little bit more difficult to understand, because this freeze leg is what turns the Acca into a massive ARB. So before, we would have laid Leeds United to win. So we would have banked on Burnley to win or the draw to occur. So you're probably assuming we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to lay Heidenheim to win. So i.e. we're going to be backing Bayern Munich to win or the draw. However, that's not the case. Now remember, the promotion allows you to freeze one of the games. So if Heidenheim go 1-0 up, we can freeze that selection on Sky Bet. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be instead laying Heidenheim to score first. So picture this. So imagine Heidenheim go 1-0 up. We're going to head over to Sky Bet, freeze that selection, and then the Acca continues. However, because we would have laid Heidenheim to score first, i.e. Bayern Munich to score first or the draw to occur, then we would have made our money in Smarkets. So if Bayern Munich scored first or the game ended as 0-0, we would have made our money in Smarkets. So let's show you what that actually looks like. So we're going to be copying our stake. We're going to be heading over to the Bayern Munich game now. So once you found the Bayern Munich and Heidenheim game, you're going to then click on teams, and then you scroll down to the bottom to find the market team to score the first goal. And then remember, we're going to be placing a lay bet against Heidenheim to score the first goal. So click on that 5.1, which is the lay bet against Heidenheim. Paste in your stake, which is £44.44, and we can have a look at what this does. So this would return us £226.62. However, we would need a liability, so we would need in our exchange £182.18. So let's again quickly go over the different scenarios for this game. So the first scenario is Heidenheim go 1-0 up, so they score first. So if that happens, you quickly head over to Skybet, freeze the selection on Skybet, and then your Acca continues. However, if the score ends at 0-0 or Bayern Munich go 1-0 up, then you head over here. So what does this do now? So if we head to the top, so far, including I think it was the £34 originally, and the £188 we spent so far, we would have accrued £216 in costs. However, from the Smarkets return, so i.e. Bayern Munich score first or the 0-0, we would win £226.61, i.e. £10.24 in profit. So here, if Bayern Munich score first or it ends in 0-0, which is the much more likely scenario because Bayern Munich are the massive favourites, we finish our Acca here and we make £10.24 in profit. But for the sake of this, let's assume Heidenheim go 1-0 up. So they go 1-0 up, meaning they would have won here and the Acca continues. Now here it goes back to normal. So you would just carry on as like you did for the Leeds game. So you'd head over to Arsenal, you'd lay Arsenal to win, you'd put a stake of £246 and you'd need £120 in your exchange. And if that happens, if Arsenal lose, you'd make £29 profit and the return, would be £367. Now, again, for the sake of it, let's assume Arsenal win. Then you'd carry on, and it is likely because they are a massive favourite. It goes on to the next game where you then again need to lay Bournemouth to win with this stake. And if that happens, you'd make £47 if Bournemouth lost or drew. But let's again say Bournemouth won. So if Bournemouth won, as their massive favourites, then the Acca would again continue. And for the final leg, you'd need to lay Inter Milan to win. Now on this leg, either way, you're going to make profit 100% now because the Acca won't continue any further. So let's go through the different scenarios now. So imagine Inter Milan won. This would mean you would have won your Acca on Sky Bet. So on Sky Bet, they would have paid you out £956.26. Meaning you would have made £160.42 in profit. However, if Inter Milan drew or lost, you would have been paid out £884 and would have made £88.70 in profit. Now, the only thing to note here is why I mentioned the maximum odds at the very start of the video is this is what your accumulated costs, your maximum costs might have been. So your total costs, if it went all the way to the fifth leg, would have been £795, which I know is a hell of a lot. However, the likelihood is, and I've never really got to the fifth leg, it happens sometimes, but it typically ends in the first leg or two, especially with the freeze leg, which has much higher odds. So the chances are Bayern Munich would have scored first and you would have made your profit here. But to summarise, what we've done is we've taken this Acca and we've turned it into a massive ARB. So no matter the outcome, at each leg, at any leg, if they lost or won, we would have made profit. So as you can see here, they all make profit, no matter the outcome. £29, £47, £88, and eventually this £160 if it went all the way to the end. However, stick with me because now I'm going to show you a few tricks and tips to show you how you can make more profit or massively reduce your costs. Now, there are a number of different strategies that our users have, and they use our Freezematcher tool and tweak it slightly to something that suits them or works for them. Now, as you noticed from earlier, the profit grows as the Acca develops. So as you get into the sort of the fourth or fifth leg, you make much more profit than you did at the first or second. Now we've done this purposely because, as you've also noticed, you do need a lot more money if you do get to the fourth or fifth leg and it takes more time. So we've done this to make sure that if you win at the start of the leg, you win fast and you win small. However, if you take a lot more time and money and get towards the fourth or fifth leg, you do make a lot more profit. However, one strategy that I found that works quite well is because the likelihood is you are going to lose at the freeze leg. You can overlay this leg and then you'll have to tweak the following legs to make sure that you do make guaranteed profit at each of the legs. So as you can see here, from when we made, I think it was £10 profit before, you can now instead make £24 profit, and then I've tweaked the legs afterwards to ensure that we make sort of £20 profit as well. So £23 profit if the lay bet wins, £28 profit if the lay bet wins, and then I've ensured if it makes it to the fifth leg, so if the lay bet wins, you make £36. If the back leg wins, you make £20, which I can even tweak now to show you how it works. So if we tweaked it from £760 stake to £755, you can see that it goes up in profit on the Acca leg. So there are many different strategies that our user base has. So there's a few strategies and it just depends what suits you. So one thing you would have noticed is as the legs developed, the profit also got bigger. So at the start, the first leg, you made very little profit, and towards the fifth leg, you made much more profit. Now we've done this purposely. We've spread the profit unevenly towards the back end of the Acca, because you've also noticed as you get to the fourth or fifth leg, you would have had to spend sort of £600, £700, £800 to get there. So if you win towards the first or second leg, you make quick profit and you make it small. But if you make it towards the fourth or fifth leg, you make much bigger profit, but it takes much longer and it requires a little bit more investment. So with that said, one strategy that I learned and one strategy that worked for myself is I'd always push the freeze leg towards the start. And then from there, I'd overlay the freeze leg. Now, because most of the time the freeze leg would lose, i.e. the favourite would score first or it would end in 0-0. You'd make your money on Smarkets. So I'd overlay this leg. So as you can see, I've increased this stake and I would have made more on the Smarket side, so £24 compared to 10. And the chances are you will make this £24. The Acca won't continue. However, if it does, I've just tweaked the stakes from here on out. So as you can see, the Acca would, so in Smarkets, you'd make £23 profit if it lost at leg 3. If it lost at leg 4, £28, and 5, £36, and so on. And so on. Now, another tip to bear in mind is that Skybet allow you to place 3 freeze selections a week. So 3 Accas, you can freeze 3 of them. Even if you place 10 Accas, you can only freeze 3 of them. So what I did is every week I'd start with 3 freeze Accas. So when it got to the hidden game, if I had to freeze it, I'd freeze all 3 Accas I had and make the profit there. If I didn't, I'd automatically make my money in Skybet, but I'd make 3 times as much. And then I'd go on to the next freeze leg. So I'd place another round of 3 Accas. And again, if that lost, I'd make my money in Skybet and continue for that week until I had to freeze it. However, one thing with this is that it does sort of flag your account to Skybet, I'd assume, because it looks a little bit suspicious. So it might get you gubbed a little bit sooner. So if you want to extend your profit, I consider it doing it one at a time and throw in some dummy bets here and there. So the final tip that I have for you, and probably the most important, because I'm assuming a lot of you are worried about this massive cost. Of course, if it goes all the way to the 5th leg, you don't want to have £900 in your Smarkets account. Or if you're placing 3 bets, almost £3,000 in your Smarkets account. So instead, you can treat it like value betting. So assuming a lot of you have heard of value betting, it's essentially removing the lay bet from ARB bets. So imagine this is one big ARB. If we were to treat this as a value bet, we just wouldn't lay it. So we'd place this Acca and we wouldn't lay it. So we'd keep an eye on this game. If Heidenheim went 1-0 up, you'd freeze it and then you continue. So you could cash out or go all the way to the 5th leg and make your profit that way. Now, of course, you would lose a hell of a lot more than you would win, but that one win every now and then would come in sort of £1,000, £2,000, even £3,000. So it'd make up for all the smaller £20 bets that you lost.